Hey, Adam, let me ask you something. When you're on the subway, crammed between an exhausted office worker and a guy eating an entire rotisserie chicken, do you ever stop and think about the artistic choices of the station you're in?
Not really. I'm usually just hoping the rotisserie chicken guy brought his own wet wipes.
See, that's the thing. When most Torontonians take the TTC, they're too busy dodging eye contact and avoiding a wet seat to take a second and look at the art around them. Every station tells a story. Some are breathtaking, some are, okay, bleak, but all of them were designed with intention. And most people in the city don't realize that behind it all, every tile, every mural, every inexplicable color choice stands one woman. And not just for a single project. She didn't design one station and walk away. She kept coming back decade after decade, shaping the look and feel of the subway as the city expanded. From the original Bloor Danforth line to Shepherd, she left her mark, sometimes literally, on nearly every phase of the development.
Really? One woman was responsible for all of it.
All of it. Every grout line, every lighting choice. You know how some stations feel grand and welcoming, while others feel like an underground Cold War bunker where classified documents change hands?
I figured that was a budgeting issue. Plus, there was that period in the 60s where they seemed to think that flat lines and gray was some type of artistic choice.
Well, it was a choice. And let me tell you, all of that was by design. And the person behind it, her name is Florence Linehart.
Now, I'm going to be honest that until you brought her up, I had never even heard of this person.
And that's the true tragedy. Florence Linehart is one of Toronto's greatest unsung visionaries. She shaped the way millions of people experience the city without them even realizing it. And yet, outside of a very specific group of academics, subway historians, and people who take brunch way too seriously, her name has been completely forgotten.
Well, subway historians can be a bit of an eccentric group.
Absolutely. I met one last year. He gave me a 4-hour walking tour of the Spadina Station tile work. We counted every shade of yellow in the mosaic. We did a moment of silence for a missing chunk of grout from 1979. Then, he made me press my ear against a support beam to hear the ghosts of rush hour. It was really weird. But he ended the tour with an almost religious tribute to Florence. I was blown away, and I had no idea the impact this woman made on the city of Toronto.
So this one woman dictated the vibe of every subway station in Toronto, and the only people who know about her are tile nerds. It's tragic.
Exactly. And here's the thing. Florence Linehart doesn't just believe she improved the subway system, she knows she did. She sees herself as a visionary, the Michelangelo of municipal infrastructure. She truly believes, that what she did is just as important as designing the subway itself.
Has anyone tried to question her on this?
Never. And today, we're here, not really even just a question, but we're going to listen, we're going to learn, we're going to finally give her the credit she deserves.
So we are going to be talking to her. You've been working on this for a while. I was starting to think that this woman didn't exist.
Yes. And guys, you'll see when you listen in, we actually get a chance to dive into her world. She's alive, she's reclusive, and she is extremely opinionated about the legacy of her work. This is a huge deal, Adam, trust me. This is like, I don't know, getting a one-on-one interview with one of the architects of the pyramids.
Well, I mean, we know who built the pyramids.
Do we?
I think so.
Yes. Okay, fine. But the point is, this is a once-in-a-lifetime moment because for the first time in decades, Florence Linehart has agreed to an interview.
And why now?
That's the mystery, honestly. When I sent an email, I read this article, I found this thing in the Toronto Star, and I sent an email to Florence, and I was surprised that she even responded. The fact that she's giving our little history project a chance is a legit honor. So, listeners, buckle up, because today, on Muddy York, we get an exclusive invitation into the world of one of Toronto's most mysterious artists, the woman who made our subway stations mean something. I'm Grayson Miller.
And I'm Adam Weiser.
And this is Muddy York. There are moments when you realize you're in the presence of something or someone truly singular. Not just an artist, not just a designer, but a mind that has shaped the way we move through this city without most of us even realizing it. Today, we have the rare privilege of speaking with Florence Linehart, a visionary whose work has been walked past, stared at, and if you believe the rumors, misunderstood for decades. Florence, thank you so much for being here. I mean, this is truly an honor.
Yes. Yes, it is. I don't do these things often. The last time I gave an interview, it was 1987. I had just revolutionized grout philosophy at St. George Station, and the CBC wanted to do a profile on me. I turned them down, of course. They didn't get it. But I have a good feeling about you two.
This is incredible.
That is an incredible amount of pressure right out of the gate.
And we'll do our best to live up to it. But before we dive into your work, I just want to set the scene for our listeners because you wouldn't do the normal thing that we do with all of our other guests. You made us come to you. So I'm sitting here and I can't believe it. Can you, it's just so hard to describe.
Exactly. I feel like we should be painting a picture here for listeners. Florence, would you like to describe where we are?
Of course. We are in my studio, which is also my home, which is also my museum. I prefer to call it the Linehart Institute for Urban Contemplation, but the city refuses to recognize it as an official institution, which is just the latest in a decades-long smear campaign against me.
This place is truly a temple to Toronto's artistic past.
Precisely. Every object in this room has been carefully curated to reflect the evolution of Toronto's artistic consciousness. That stack of unmarked VHS tapes, those are recordings of every single subway ride I took between 1979 and 1994. That filing cabinet in the corner, it contains all the letters I've written to the TTC, letters they never had the courage to answer. And this wall here? This wall is where I have documented every single time the city has wronged me.
There's a lot of pushpins and red string.
Correct. That string connects everything. City Hall, the Group of Seven conspiracy, the retiling of Spadina Station in 2006 without my approval. It all leads back to one thing. Fear.
Wait, sorry, what? Fear? The Group of Seven? What?
Yes. The city is afraid of visionaries. They always have been. It's why my father was erased. It's why they won't acknowledge my role in shaping Toronto's aesthetic identity. And it's why I have been forced to retreat into the shadows like an artist banished from her own canvas.
Okay, Florence, there's a lot to unpack there,
Oh my God.
and I want to make sure our audience is following. Let's not assume that everyone knows your name, though they should. Toronto's subway system is a defining feature of the city, an underground artery that millions rely on. But very few ever stop to think about the design of it, the choices, the aesthetics, the way it subtly shapes how we experience the space. And yet for those who do stop and look, for those who see it, your work is everywhere. The original subway line, Line 1 today, opened in 1954. And at first the aesthetic was functional, even stark. Clean lines, uniform tiles, no frills. And I don't mean the Loblaw store. But then about 10 years later, something shifted. TTC began experimenting, introducing bolder choices, textures, mosaics, and unexpected flourishes. And at some point, you enter the picture. I'm just learning about your story now, so let's start at the beginning. How did you get into the business of defining Toronto's subway aesthetic?
I believe it was 1964. I was painting in a cafe in Kensington Market, La Tasse Mystique, a hidden gem that, tragically, was shut down in 71 after a mysterious electrical fire. But we all know what that was about. When I overheard two out-of-place businessmen talking, tweed suits, bad posture, the whole thing. And you know what? They were panicking.
What were they panicking about?
They kept saying the new subway stations were soulless. Toronto had opened its first subway in 1954, as he said, and now, a decade later, they were expanding, but something was missing. The station lacked identity. They needed a way to make them feel human, but they didn't know it.
And these businessmen, who were they?
Well, at first, I didn't recognize them. But as fate would have it, these out-of-place gentlemen were none other than Charles A. Walton and Ralph C. Day, key officials of the Toronto Transit Commission. You could see the weight of the subway's artistic emptiness bearing down on them. They needed help. This was my moment, my calling.
You saw an opportunity.
Of course, it was fate. I had spent years preparing for that exact moment. My entire life had been leading to it. So I did what any great visionary would do. I launched myself across the cafe, tripped over a chair, and kind of spilled my Americano all over one of their briefcases. And while he was screaming about these very important documents, I said, "Gentlemen, have you considered pictures on the wall?"
Brilliant.
They hated me. And they said, "You mean advertisements?" And I said, "No, you Philistines. Think permanent. Think history. Think the frescoes of Italy, but for the Bloor Danforth line." And you know what they said?
They loved it?
They said, and I quote, "Who let this woman in here?"
Now, Florence, I've only known you for 10 minutes, but I can't imagine that stopped you.
Of course not. I sat down at their table, uninvited, but that's the price of genius, and began sketching out my vision on a napkin. I proposed a subway system that would tell a story, a journey through art and culture, right underneath the feet of millions of people. They scoffed, but I saw in their eyes fear. They knew I was right.
And just like that, they hired you.
Well, not immediately, but do you know what those guys tried to do? They tried to eject me from the restaurant. I resisted. I chained myself to a chair. Actually, not a restaurant chair. I brought my own chair because that's what I need to do sometimes. And, you need to be prepared when you're a strong woman like me. But I resisted.
Legendary.
Eventually, they left, but I followed them. I sent letters. I called their offices. And finally, after a series of impassioned speeches and an incident at a city planning meeting that I can't legally discuss, I was given the position.
Florence, I just have to say, I knew you were a visionary. I knew you shaped Toronto, but hearing it from you, getting the real story, it's like, I don't know, Adam, what do you think the words I'm looking for is?
Unhinged?
No, inspiring, Adam. I think we're in the presence of history.
Sure, that's one way to put it. But okay, so Florence, you mentioned it in your intro and I was trying to avoid it, but we can't dance around this forever. Because for better or for worse, it's part of your story, part of why you became an artist in the first place. Your father wasn't just any painter, he was part of an early Toronto art movement. So he was also a visual artist, correct?
Not just an artist. He was the forgotten member of the Group of Seven.
The Group of Seven had an eighth member?
For a time, they all met for the first time right here in Toronto. And my father was there.
Unbelievable. So this was never just about the subway. This was about artistic justice. This was about restoring your family's legacy.
Right. So what happened?
A conspiracy.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. My father, Florence Linehart, was this close to being one of Canada's most celebrated painters, but there were forces working against him.
So you're saying the Group of Seven kicked him out?
They didn't just kick him out. They erased him. They buried his work. They feared what he could do.
Why? What was so threatening about his work?
Well, because, according to them, his paintings were too powerful. They feared his work would overshadow theirs. That, or because he exclusively painted raccoons wearing waistcoats.
Wait a minute. Raccoons didn't wear waistcoats at that time.
Oh, no, Adam, these were refined raccoons. Dapper, dignified. They sort of represented what Toronto was trying to be, right? He captured a world no one else could see. But the others, Harris, McDonald, Jackson, they rejected it, said it was not in keeping with the artistic vision.
Coward.
So they kicked him out.
Not only that, they made sure no one remembered him. They called themselves the Group of Seven so that there was no room for an eight. And this goes deep, gentlemen, all the way to City Hall.
The city of Toronto was involved in a cover-up against an artist?
Yes, I have to ask, why would City Hall be involved in removing your father from the Group of Seven?
Oh, Adam. Sweet, naive Adam. They control everything. You know that, don't you? Why do you think there's no Linehart station? Why do you think there's no record of him in official archives? Why do you think the Toronto Reference Library mysteriously lost all of his sketches?
Because he painted just raccoons.
No, Grayson. Because they don't want you to remember him. If the people of Toronto knew there was a better artist, a greater visionary than those other seven, the whole narrative collapses. And they can't have that.
Okay, this is unbelievable. Wow. Florence, I just have to say that I don't know if you agree with this, Adam, but I think that this is one of the most important stories we've ever told on this show. This history has been buried, and I'm so glad that we get to uncover it. I mean, what else have they hidden from us?
Great. Okay. So, Florence, let's get back to the subway. You land the job. The city hands you the artistic fate of the entire system. What happens next?
Well, first, I entered a deep period of artistic meditation. I cut off all distractions. No more gallery openings, no more social obligations, except for brunch, obviously. I needed to become the subway. I rode the train all hours, watching, absorbing, feeling the spaces.
Right. Because nothing captures the human experience quite like a 2 a.m. subway ride with a guy clipping his toenails.
Exactly. It was in those late night rides, surrounded by Toronto's lost souls and, yes, a surprising number of pet ferrets, that I realized this was more than transit. It was a living organism. Each station had a heartbeat, and it was my responsibility, no, my duty, to bring those heartbeats to life through design.
And TTC just gave you full creative control.
Well, not immediately. They resisted. They wanted something simple, something practical. And laughed in their faces. I said, you don't want practicality. You want grandeur. You want emotion. And after what I can only describe as a 6-hour performance art piece in which I reenacted the entire history of transit through interpretive dance, they gave me my first assignment.
And what was that?
Museum station.
The masterpiece in my...
Yeah. Yes. Museum station. People say, oh, you made it look like a museum. How obvious. But no. I lived inside the room for 4 weeks. I whispered to the mummy. I let the dinosaur bones guide me. And in a moment of pure artistic revelation, I said, columns. We need big columns. And the TTC wept at my brilliance.
Because they understood.
I suppose that feels logical for Museum Station.
Logical. It was divine intervention.
I mean, of course it was.
I often think about Finch. That was my most existential work. It was the last stop on the line. It needed to feel like the end of something. So I spent 6 months riding the subway to Finch, staring at people as they exited. What I saw was despair, a slow, heavy resignation to the abyss. And I thought, gray. The station must be gray. People tell me it's depressing. No. Depressing is when you realize your father was erased from history by the Group of Seven. Finch isn't depressing, it's earnest.
Florence, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but it's now this really hideous yellow color.
Yellow? Huh. I mean, of course they would do that to me. Yellow. That's disgusting. Shepherd. Now, that was a challenge. I wanted something deeply metaphorical, so I created the mosaic. It tells the story of Toronto, the universe, and the human condition. Each tile has meaning. I forgot most of them, but trust me, they were profound.
Right. I actually read about this. When I was researching the development of the Shepherd line, I came across something about the design team running out of materials. There were supply issues, budget overruns. It was the late 90s after all. And the Shepherd extension was already a financial nightmare. The whole thing was delayed. The city was arguing about whether it was even necessary. And meanwhile, the artistic elements of the station were in disarray. In fact, the official reports I found mentioned unexpected artistic modifications, which I now assume means you.
Well, naturally. When they told me there were no more tiles, I didn't panic. I improvised. I went home, gathered what I could, and finished the mosaic with pieces of my own dinnerware.
You infused a piece of your own life into the work. That's not just art, that's sacrifice.
I actually think I might have cut my arm on one of your forks, but so just to confirm, the Shepherd Station does contain actual dinnerware.
Hey, doesn't that make it personal?
It does. It really does.
And not to mention, it is very personal because at one point, some of my hair got caught in the grout and I just kind of plastered over it. So in a very real sense, pieces of me are still in Shepherd Station.
That is either incredibly moving or slightly horrifying, I guess.
Yes, art should be both. Now, Dundas West. Let me tell you, that was a real challenge. I needed to capture the essence of the neighborhood. So I did what any dedicated artist would do. I moved into a coffee ton and lived exclusively on Toronto's fourth favorite coffee and donuts for 6 months. I let the city seep into my bones, and then, in a moment of pure inspiration, I declared, brown. The station must be brown.
Okay, so just to be clear, your grand artistic conclusion after half a year of work was brown.
Not just any brown, a brown that tells a story, a brown that evokes warmth, grit, and the faint smell of cigarette smoke clinging to your winter coat.
I will admit Dundas West does feel brown.
Now, moving on to my next station, Eglinton West, that was different. I wanted something that honored Toronto's Caribbean community. So I threw myself into the culture. I attended every festival, every dance hall party. I even attempted to join a steel drum band, but they said I had no talent.
I feel like that was possibly accurate.
Well, regardless, I absorbed the energy and I said, Eglinton West needs to feel like a party. And so I designed the colors to be rich, vibrant, electric. But of course, the TTC wanted muted earth tones. So we compromised. A little vibrancy, but mostly earth tones. And the result? A station that wants to dance, but is being held back by bureaucracy.
That actually explains a lot about that station.
Works. St. Clair. Now, St. Clair was a personal triumph. You see, St. Clair was meant to evoke a sense of nostalgia, a longing for simpler terms. That is why I used muted reds, soft grays, tones of quiet dignity.
That's actually my local station, and if I'm being honest, it evokes a feeling of the slush in my boots.
Well, maybe it missed the mark a little, but I think overall, it's so. Don't you think it whispers life is fleeting?
I have to bring something out. It's on the record that Charles Pachter is actually credited with designing the murals of Spadina Station.
Oh, that old controversy. Listen, I don't deny that Pachter's name is on the work. But tell me this, who chose Pachter for the job?
Who gave him the artistic direction?
Who set the vision?
You're saying it was you?
Not just me, us. You see, Charles and I were entangled, a creative fusion of mind and, for a time, hearts.
Hold on. I'm sorry to have to delve into your personal life. I'm very sorry. But are you saying that?
Yes, Adam, that's what I'm saying. Charles Pachter and I were lovers. He was my muse. But more importantly, I was his boss, which, if you think about it, makes his work my work.
I'm like almost sure that's not how artistic credit works.
Isn't it? When an artist paints a ceiling, do we praise the paint or the one who chose the color? No one asks who sharpened Michelangelo's chisel before he carved
David. No one asked who whispered in his ear late at night, telling him exactly how much muscle definition was too much. Which, by the way, Pachter had excellent muscle definition.
Always good to know.
The true artistry is in the vision. And Spadina Station's vision? Mine.
Okay, could this be seen as an early form of workplace harassment?
Some people don't understand how subway murals are created, so no.
Okay, so just to be clear, Florence, you're saying that the entire aesthetic of Spadina Station, its vibrant colors, its geometric patterns, were all Charles Pachter's execution, but your concept?
Precisely. I told him, Charles, we need something bold, something that speaks to the past, but screams the future. And he looked at me deep into my eyes, trembling with inspiration, and he said, yes, Florence, I see it now.
That's quite the claim. Gray, do we have a lawyer?
I think we might need one. We put this there.
If you don't believe me, just look at the murals. They radiate a certain passion, don't they? A certain energy. That's not just artistic technique, Adam. That's two souls interwoven, translated into tile.
Or it's a well-designed subway mural.
Okay. If that helps you sleep at night, you can think of it. Okay.
This is the last question, because I've always wanted to know about this. Bay Lower, the abandoned ghost station. What's the real story there?
Yes. Bay Lower was meant to be my avant-garde masterpiece. The TTC didn't get it. I told them this station should be felt, not seen. I wanted it to be an emotional experience. So I suggested we build a station and then abandon it immediately. A monument to potential never fulfilled.
I can't say I'm shocked in this city, but you're saying that Lower Bay was designed never to be used? It was intentional?
Adam, everything I do is intentional.
I apologize. Thank you for coming on the episode, but that might be the most single pretentious thing I've ever heard.
Thank you.
That was an amazing story, but somehow Bay Lower isn't even the most famous thing you didn't design.
Right, because your greatest masterpiece isn't a subway station at all. It's the room you refused to design for Drake.
Yes, the Drake incident. You need to know, he came to me, desperate. I remember it vividly. He said, Florence, I need you to capture the essence of my success in tile form. And I looked deep into his eyes and I said, you don't need me. They're not like us.
Sorry, did you just reference Kendrick Lamar on a Toronto podcast? You know he really hurt our hometown hero's feelings.
No, I did not reference Kendrick. Kendrick Lamar references me.
I had the original beef with Drake. In essence, Kendrick is just another one of my artistic flaws.
You're claiming to know. Okay, you know what? Never mind. I'm so glad you're here, but I think this interview has gone on long enough. Florence, thank you for your time.
Yes, this has been illuminating.
Okay, but we do this with all of our guests. Before we wrap up, do you have any final words for our listeners?
Yes. To all the young artists listening, remember this. A train without a track is just a large mental disappointment. And a city without vision, a path to nowhere. Speaking about the path, you know, the series of randomly connected tunnels under Union Station. I also had a hand in some of that. If you want to hear.
No, it's okay. I think we've got enough material, Florence. This has been the Muddy York Podcast. Thank you for listening. And we're out. Great. Where did you get this woman? You said you did a background check.
I mean, Florence Linehart, a visionary, a rebel, a woman who defied the establishment and reshaped Toronto with nothing but grout and conviction. Think about it. How many people in the city walk through her creations every single day without even knowing it? She willed herself into history. She forced her way into the conversation, and she refused to be ignored. How do you even quantify an impact like that? You can't. Florence Linehart doesn't belong to one era. In my opinion, she belongs to all of them.
Ray, I know your son's been keeping you up all night for the last week, so I'm going to let this go.
I mean, Drake himself came to her, Drake, and she denied him. And not just denied, she inspired him. Is Florence Linehart the reason why Kendrick and Drake are beefing? We may never know. But here's one thing for sure. If she was real, she'd be a legend.